It all started like a dream. One of those rare moments in life when everything feels aligned. Your mind is sharp, your ideas flow like a river, and it feels like the universe itself is whispering, "This is your time." That was me. Hopeful, inspired, ready. I had a business idea. Not just something small or casual, not something you scribble on a napkin and forget. No, this idea felt big. It felt powerful. It felt like the kind of idea that could shift my life from ordinary to extraordinary if I could just shape it, polish it, and bring it into the world. I had been working on it for months. Late nights that blurred into early mornings. Dozens of pages of notes, rough sketches, drafts, corrections. Even the mistakes felt beautiful because they reminded me I was moving forward. But I wasn't doing it alone. I had someone right by my side. Someone I trusted more than anyone else. My best friend. The guy who knew me better than I knew myself. The one who had been there through my awkward years, my failures, my heartbreaks, my victories. We grew up together, same streets, same schools, same wild dreams about our futures. We used to sit on rooftops at night, talking about how one day we'd build something great together. Something the world would remember. He wasn't just a friend, he was family. At least that's what I believed. Because sometimes, the most painful betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people you'd take a bullet for. The people you trust without hesitation. The people you think would never hurt you. I still remember the day I shared my idea with him. The sunlight coming through the window. The excitement in my voice. The way my hands moved as I explained every detail. The concept, the market plan, the strategy, the risks, the future projections. I laid everything out like an open book, because why wouldn't I? He was my best friend. And when I looked at him, I thought I saw pride in his eyes. I thought I saw happiness. But now, when I replay that moment in my mind, I realize what I saw wasn't pride. It was hunger. A kind of sharp, quiet hunger that I was too blind to recognize. He nodded, asked questions, took notes, even suggested improvements. I felt grateful. I thought he was supporting me, helping me, believing in me. But the truth, his excitement wasn't for my success. It was for something else entirely. Fast forward a few weeks. Just a few weeks. And suddenly, everything felt different. People I barely knew started congratulating him on a new project. A groundbreaking idea. A business that sounded suspiciously familiar. Too familiar. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself maybe it's something similar, maybe it's just coincidence. But then I heard the name. The exact name I had created. The one I had written in all caps on the first page of my notebook. My stomach dropped. My heart sank. My hands went cold. I remember standing still for a long moment, like time itself froze around me. My own idea. Presented by him. Claimed by him. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to imagine my best friend stealing something so important, so personal. But the whispers kept coming. More people telling me how amazing his idea was. How smart he was. How this could be the next big thing. Every word felt like a knife twisting a little deeper. I tried to stay calm. I tried to tell myself I was mistaken. That maybe he was giving me credit behind the scenes. Maybe he was just mentioning me to others and the rumor got twisted. But then, the final blow came. Someone said, "He told us you weren't interested in doing anything with this idea. He said you gave it up." I felt something break inside me. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet shatter. The kind you don't hear but you feel everywhere. Lazy. Unmotivated. Gave up. He painted me like that. To everyone. Friends. colleagues, investors, people who might have believed in me. He stole my idea. And he stole my reputation with it. I remember sitting on my bed that night, staring at the wall, trying to understand how everything changed so quickly. How did a friend turn into a stranger? How did trust turn into betrayal? How did an idea I nurtured become something he claimed as his own? Anger wasn't even the right word for what I felt. It was something deeper. Something colder. Like a silent storm building inside me. I had 3 choices. I could scream. I could confront him. Or I could plan. Screaming would make me look desperate. Confronting him without proof would make me look unstable. But planning meant patience. It meant intelligence. It meant playing the long game. And deep down I knew, if I wanted justice, real justice, confrontation alone wouldn't fix anything. I had to be smarter, calmer, more strategic. I needed revenge. It's not loud, not violent, not destructive. I needed a kind of revenge that exposed truth. That flipped the story back to where it belonged. A revenge that didn't just take something from him, but took everything he tried to take from me. And that moment, that quiet, painful, breathless moment, is when the real story began. Betrayal never arrives like a thunderstorm. It doesn't shout. It doesn't slam doors. It doesn't warn you before it strikes. It creeps in softly, silently, like a shadow slipping under your door when you're not looking. At first, I told myself this was nothing. A misunderstanding. An exaggeration. A coincidence. Maybe people got confused, mixed up the project, heard the wrong thing. Because I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. The alternative, a friend stealing from me, felt too painful to accept. But the universe kept placing the truth right in front of me. Every time someone congratulated him. Every time someone mentioned his brilliant idea. Every time I saw another picture of him smiling proudly beside a big banner with my concept written on it. It felt like a punch I couldn't dodge. A punch that landed straight in my chest, knocking the air out of me. I'd stare at those photos, his confident smile, his polished words, his speeches. And all I could think about was the night we sat together, planning the very same thing. The same diagrams. The same name. The same strategy. Everything I had told him was now reflected in his new project, like a twisted mirror showing me what was stolen. I remember one moment clearly. A friend walked up to me and casually said, "Hey man, didn't know you were helping him with that startup. That's cool." Helping him. Helping him. I stood there frozen, hearing those words echo in my mind. Is that what he told them? That I was just a helper? Someone who gave a few ideas and stepped away? No, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a lie. A lie wrapped in confidence, told so casually that people never questioned it. And that night, that long, quiet, suffocating night, I sat alone in my room, staring at nothing. The walls felt empty. The air felt colder. The silence felt heavier than ever. I replayed every conversation we'd had. Every late-night phone call. Every excited discussion where I opened my heart and told him how much this idea meant to me. How long I had dreamed about it. How hard I had worked on it. I remembered how he nodded, smiled, encouraged me. All while memorizing every detail I shared. He had used me. Not just once. Not just accidentally. He had studied me. Studied my idea. Studied my plan. And then he walked away with everything, pretending it was his all along. And the worst part, he fooled everyone. Everyone. Friends, colleagues, investors, acquaintances. They all believed his version of the story. Because why wouldn't they? He knew how to smile at the right moment. He knew how to talk confidently. He knew how to twist a narrative and make himself look innocent. Meanwhile, I was left looking like the one who gave up. The one who wasn't serious. The one who didn't want to pursue it anymore. It was a clever betrayal. Quiet, calculated, perfectly executed. I sat there that night, the weight of everything pressing on my chest, and I felt something shift inside me. A cold understanding. A truth I didn't want but couldn't escape. He didn't just steal my idea. He destroyed something far more valuable. My trust. The friendship we built over years. The loyalty I thought was mutual. The bond I believed could never be broken. In one move, he shattered it all. And he didn't even flinch. Because betrayal doesn't just happen in actions. It happens in expressions too. In the tone of voice. In the way someone responds when they think they've already won. And I still remember the exact moment I reached out to him. I forced myself to sound calm. Even friendly. "Hey," I texted, "saw your new project, looks great." My hands were shaking when I sent that message. Not out of anger, but out of disbelief. Out of heartbreak. Because a part of me still hoped he'd say something, anything, that showed even a little guilt. A little remorse. A little humanity. His reply came fast. Too fast. "Oh yeah, thanks man, it's been crazy, you know how it is." Casual. Cold. Untouchable. Like we never shared a single meaningful conversation. Like this was normal. Like this wasn't betrayal, but business. That tone. That smug, polished, confident tone. It told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't conflicted. He wasn't even nervous. He was proud. Proud of stealing what wasn't his. Proud of lying to everyone. Proud of building his success on the foundation of my ideas, my sweat, my dreams. And that was the moment something inside me snapped. Not loudly. Not violently. Just a quiet shift, like a door closing inside my heart. I finally saw him, not as a friend, not as a partner, not as someone I loved like family. But as someone who would do anything for success. Even betray the very person who trusted him the most. I knew then that if I confronted him right away, I'd lose. He already had the spotlight. The support. The narrative. And he was good at twisting stories. Good at playing innocent. Good at making people believe whatever he wanted. If I rushed in with anger, people would think I was jealous. Or insecure. Or trying to steal his idea. No, impulsiveness would ruin everything. And I wasn't going to give him that victory. In that moment, I made a decision. A calm, cold, quiet decision. I needed a plan. Not revenge driven by rage. But revenge shaped by strategy. By patience. By intelligence. The kind of revenge that doesn't just expose truth, but destroys every lie he built on top of my ideas. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and breathed deeply. The betrayal was real. The pain was real. But now, so was my determination. He thought he had won. He thought I'd remain silent. He thought I'd accept this. But he had no idea. The real game had just begun. The word itself sounds loud, impulsive, hot-headed. But what I learned is that real revenge, the kind that lasts, isn't about anger. It's about precision. It's about patience. It's about waiting for the perfect moment. I couldn't let my emotions dictate my next move. Rushing in would have made me predictable. And if I acted too soon, I would only play into his hands. He was clever, confident, and untouchable, or so he thought. So I did what every strategist does. I planned. I started by gathering evidence. Not vaguely, not haphazardly, but meticulously. Every email I had sent. Every voice note we exchanged. Every sketch I had drawn. Every spreadsheet, every draft, every rough note scribbled in the margins of my notebook. I collected it all. I organized it. I built a timeline of our work, a trail of proof that couldn't be denied. It wasn't just about showing the world that the idea was mine. It was about creating a story they couldn't ignore. A narrative so clear, so undeniable, that even the smartest liar wouldn't escape it. But evidence alone wasn't enough. I had to understand him. I had to study the person I once trusted like family. And so I watched. I listened. I observed. I paid attention to his patterns, his weaknesses, his habits, the little cracks in his polished persona. Every brag on social media. Every casual conversation with colleagues. Every careless comment that hinted at arrogance, overconfidence, or carelessness. And slowly, I started to see the pieces fall into place. He thought he was untouchable. He assumed I was defeated, silent, powerless. He had no idea I was quietly building a chessboard behind the scenes, moving each piece into position. Every brag became ammunition. Every casual boast became a stepping stone toward the truth. Every careless word was a hint of vulnerability. It wasn't about revenge in the moment. It was about ensuring he could never escape the truth. Every lie he had spun, every story he had told, every bit of false pride would crumble the moment I was ready. I also began testing the waters. Small, subtle moves to see how people reacted. A comment here. A hint there. Casual questions to mutual acquaintances. Remember when we talked about this idea last year? Nothing accusatory, nothing dramatic, just a seed planted in the right minds. And slowly it worked. People started thinking. Doubts began creeping in. He could feel it too, even if he couldn't put his finger on it. I could see it in the way he hesitated during conversations. The way he smiled less confidently when people asked about his project. The irony was delicious. He had taken everything from me, thinking I was powerless. He thought I had no defense. He thought I would disappear quietly. But the truth was this. He never suspected I had already started turning the tables. He never realized that patience was my ally. That strategy was my weapon. That silence had become my shield. I also realized that revenge isn't about being loud or dramatic. It's about being smart. It's about letting people discover the truth themselves. There's something far more satisfying in exposing someone through reality than by confrontation. So I continued, carefully, deliberately. I made notes of every lie he told. Every time he claimed something that was mine. I cross-referenced everything with the proof I had collected. Every fact lined up. Every timeline matched. I started imagining the moment when all of this would converge. When the story I had crafted, piece by piece, evidence by evidence, would hit him like a tidal wave. I could almost see it, the surprise in his eyes, the fumbling words, the disbelief that anyone could see through his carefully constructed lies. And yet I didn't rush. I held back. I waited. Because revenge without timing is just frustration. Revenge without patience is just anger. And I wasn't angry anymore, I was determined. I also realized another truth: this wasn't just about me. It wasn't just about proving who was right or wrong. It was about reclaiming my dignity. My voice. My story. For months I worked quietly behind the scenes, building my evidence, observing, learning, and waiting. Every small victory, the little doubt I planted in someone's mind, the tiny crack in his confident smile, added fuel to my strategy. And every day I grew more confident. Because I knew the most powerful moves in life aren't made in a moment of rage. They're made in silence, in preparation, in patience. Eventually, I realized something beautiful. He had become predictable. Every action, every boast, every careless slip had become part of the puzzle. The stronger he tried to appear, the more I could see him. The more he flaunted the stolen idea, the easier it would be to expose him. It was like watching a house of cards. And I was holding the final card. And the best part, he had no idea. He thought he was untouchable. He thought he had covered every angle. He thought I had been defeated. Little did he know, I had already started moving. Every piece in place. Every moment planned. Every detail accounted for. And all that was left was the perfect moment to strike. That's when I knew. The betrayal had set the stage. The evidence had built the path. And the plan would turn his arrogance into his undoing. I wasn't just going to reclaim what was mine. I was going to show him, everyone around us, and most importantly myself, that truth, strategy, and patience will always triumph over lies, betrayal, and deception. And in that moment, I felt calm, focused, ready, because the game had begun. And I was about to win. The first phase of my plan wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't some explosive confrontation where the truth came crashing down. No, it was gentle, quiet, almost invisible, the kind of moves that slip through the cracks unnoticed until they don't. I started with conversations, nothing direct, nothing obvious, just tiny seeds planted in the minds of people who knew both of us. A casual remark here, an innocent question there. Interesting project he's working on, reminds me of something familiar. Oh, didn't we talk about a similar idea months back? People who had initially praised him began to pause, their expressions shifted, they started replaying memories, connecting dots they hadn't even realized were there. And it worked, slowly but steadily. Mutual friends who once spoke highly of his vision now looked at him differently, not accusing, not confrontational, but curious enough to make him uncomfortable. Suddenly, the spotlight he loved so much began to flicker. He felt it, I saw it in the way he carried himself. His confident smile tightened. His answers became shorter. He started avoiding long conversations about his project. He knew something was off, but he couldn't figure out what. Because I wasn't attacking him. I was adjusting the air around him. Letting the truth whisper into people's minds before it ever had to scream from mine. It was subtle, it was strategic, and it was only the beginning. By this point he thought he had won. He walked around with that careless confidence people wear when they believe the world is finally cheering for them. He felt safe, untouchable. But that's the problem with standing on a stolen throne. One loose stone, and the entire structure crumbles. I never confronted him directly, I didn't need to. Instead, I started moving in the spaces he didn't expect, quietly, gracefully, and with purpose. I began reaching out to the very people he was trying to impress, not aggressively, not emotionally, but professionally, calmly, casually, conversations that looked harmless on the surface, but underneath they were loaded. With investors I knew, I talked about my journey, my original idea, the early drafts, the designs I had created long before he showed them to the world. I didn't accuse him. I didn't say he stole anything. I simply showed them the truth. Screenshots, dates, notes, sketches, voice messages. A timeline so solid it couldn't be questioned. Every piece of evidence quietly slipped into the right hands. And it started working. Investors who once praised his innovation began to hesitate. They asked him questions he couldn't answer. Where are the earlier drafts? Why do the concepts look identical to something we heard about months ago? Can you explain the inconsistencies in the timeline? His mask began to crack. Publicly he tried to stay composed, but behind the scenes he was scrambling, confused, frustrated, because lies can win applause but they can't survive scrutiny. And in those moments, I realized something. I didn't need to confront him to expose him. I just needed to let the truth walk into every room he entered. And room by room, conversation by conversation, his world began to shrink. The day I had been waiting for finally arrived. A major industry conference, a place where leaders, investors, and innovators gathered to showcase ideas, debate strategies, and judge who was truly original. And there he was, standing on the stage, projecting confidence, telling the world the story he had stolen, our idea, as if it had been his from the start. I could have stormed in angrily, I could have shouted, accused, or demanded the spotlight. But months of patience had taught me something crucial. Truth doesn't need noise. Truth doesn't need anger. Truth just needs to be undeniable. I walked into the hall, calm, composed, and entirely in control. Every email, every sketch, every draft, every voice note, every timeline meticulously organized, all of it tucked securely into my laptop and portfolio, ready to speak for itself. I didn't need to dramatize, I didn't need theatrics. I simply let the evidence breathe. When I approached the podium, I started calmly, addressing the audience with confidence. I presented the story of the idea, not as an accusation, but as the truth. Step by step, how it was conceived, how it was drafted, how it evolved. The timeline was precise. The sketches were dated. The emails and voice notes proved my ownership beyond question. I could feel eyes turning toward him, the whispers beginning, the uneasy shuffling as he realized this wasn't a rumor anymore. He tried. He stammered. He smiled nervously. He offered explanations that sounded rehearsed, hollow, and fragile. But the truth doesn't falter. It doesn't need words. It simply stands there, undeniable, unshakable. And slowly the room went silent. A silence that spoke louder than any accusation ever could. Everyone, the investors, the industry leaders, our colleagues, saw it clearly. The story he had woven for himself had collapsed. Every lie, every exaggeration, every false claim, shattered. And then, almost imperceptibly, the recognition began. A nod here. A whisper there. A glance toward me that silently said, "We see it now." The applause I received wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It was quiet, respectful, reverent. It was a recognition of truth finally being acknowledged. In that moment, I realized something profound. Revenge isn't about humiliating someone. It isn't about showing off. It's about letting justice unfold naturally, letting truth illuminate what deception tried to hide. And as I stood there, the weight of betrayal lifting from my shoulders, I finally felt it, the satisfaction of patience, strategy, and truth combining into something far stronger than anger. He had thought he was untouchable. He had thought his lies could shield him forever. But the revelation was complete. And this time the victory wasn't just mine. It belonged to everyone who believed in honesty, in hard work, and in integrity. The story had been restored. The truth had been told. And he was left with nothing but the echoes of the deception he had built. The moment he stepped off the stage, I could see it in his posture, slumped, hesitant, defeated, not with pride, not with that confident, untouchable swagger he wore for months. No, he carried shame. Friends who had once rallied around him, congratulated him, supported him blindly, began to drift away. Conversations that had once been easy and casual became awkward, tense. People looked at him differently now, eyes heavy with doubt, whispers of "did he really?" hanging in the air. Investors who had once been captivated by his charisma now came to me. They apologized, not loudly, not theatrically, but sincerely. Offers that had once gone to him now found their way back to me. Opportunities I had almost lost forever were suddenly within reach again. And yet, it wasn't about winning. It wasn't about humiliating him or proving I was better. It was about justice. About showing that lies, betrayal, and deceit may work temporarily, but the truth always finds its way. Watching him finally realize that his deception couldn't shield him, that his carefully crafted story had collapsed, it was oddly satisfying. Not because I wanted to see him fail, but because the balance had been restored. The scales of honesty and integrity had tipped back in favor of reality. Even in victory, though, there was a bitter taste. The friendship that had once meant everything to me, destroyed. Trust broken. Time and effort lost to someone who never deserved them. But sometimes that's the cost of learning who people really are. Of understanding that not everyone who smiles at you is loyal, not everyone who laughs with you is trustworthy. It's painful, it's frustrating, and yet it's necessary. In the quiet aftermath, I felt something else too, a sense of relief, clarity, and even growth. I had faced betrayal, endured shock, and navigated the careful, strategic path toward justice. And I had come out not only with my idea intact, but with a deeper understanding of myself, my boundaries, and my strength. Sometimes justice isn't about revenge. Sometimes it's about standing strong, letting truth speak for itself, and allowing the world to see what is real. That day I learned, betrayal may break your heart, but patience, strategy, and integrity can restore everything else. In the quiet that followed all the chaos, I realized something profound, something no business school or mentor could ever teach. Trust is fragile. Ideas are valuable. But relationships are even more delicate than both. Some people will take what isn't theirs. Some will lie, cheat, and manipulate without a second thought. It's a harsh truth, but it's one you need to see clearly if you want to survive in this world. And yet there is power in patience, planning, and truth. Those are forces that betrayal, lies, and deceit cannot overpower. They don't scream, they don't demand attention. But quietly, inevitably, they prevail. If someone betrays you, it's not just about revenge. It's about reclaiming your story. It's about showing the world, and most importantly, yourself, that your integrity, your perseverance, and your hard work cannot be stolen. No matter how clever, no matter how bold the deception, the truth has a way of rising. I still think about him sometimes. Not with anger, not with resentment, but with clarity. That friendship, what I thought would last forever, was a chapter closed. A lesson learned. And my business, it's thriving. Not because I proved anything to him, but because I stayed true to myself. Even when someone else tried to rewrite my story, I held on to mine. I nurtured it, protected it, and allowed it to grow. That's the truth about betrayal. It hurts, it stings, it leaves scars. But it can also teach you something far greater. Strength, patience, strategy, and the clarity to understand the kind of person you truly want to be, someone who doesn't let others' lies define them, someone who rises despite the pain, someone who turns betrayal into wisdom and growth. In the end, it's not about winning or losing. It's about emerging whole. Stronger, wiser, true to yourself. And that is a victory no one can ever steal. Subscribe.